9:30 p.m.
Good evening, I'm Telly Edwards. On News 5 tonight, a new population study highlights the need for immigration to mitigate effects of an aging society.
We should wake up, grow up, and be a developed country.
The inquiry on last year's MRT breakdowns hears that those cable ties for dislodged rail claws did not work. The US in talks with Chinese activist Chen Guangcheng again after he claims there are threats to his family.
Please return our son. He's our only son.
And a Dutch boy kidnapped a week ago in Malaysia is finally freed. A new study by the Institute of Policy Studies found that even if Singapore increases the proportion of foreigners in its midst, the population will still get older and the labour growth rate will still fall. But it says immigration could slow down these effects.
The report takes into account the country's non-resident population. This includes those on work permits, long-term social visit passes and foreign students. The report sets out 3 scenarios. 1, where the proportion of foreigners remains at 25% of the total population. 2, where this proportion drops to 20%, and 3, where the proportion is raised to 33%. For all scenarios, it's assumed that Singapore will take in 30,000 new citizens or permanent residents every year, and the country's total fertility rate remains at 1.24. The report puts Singapore's population at 6.8 million in 2030, up from the current 5.2 million, if the proportion of foreigners in the population is raised to 33%. And while the average population will still get older, a higher proportion of non-residents will slow this process down. At the current fertility rate, with 30,000 new citizens or PRs a year plus non-residents in the mix, the support ratio for every elderly person aged 65 and above to a working adult is 1:10.3. In about 20 years, this will be halved to 1:5.1, even if the proportion of foreigners in the country goes up to 33%. With or without foreigners, the labour force will be hit. Even with the bumped-up crop of foreigners, the report shows that the labour force will grow far less than the historical average of 3.6% a year. With the current proportion of 25% of foreigners in the midst, the labour force will grow by 1.04% over the next 10 years. Raising the proportion to 33% will see the labour force grow marginally to 2.47% annually over the same period. For all scenarios, the labour growth rate will plunge to about 0.25% by 2050. Economists say this isn't necessarily a bad thing, as slower labour growth rate will force productivity up.
3 to 4% labour force growth, 2 to 3% labour force growth. A labour force growth more characteristic of developing countries. We're a developed country. We should wake up, grow up, and be a developed country.
And the consensus among economists at the forum is that the proportion of foreigners in the country should be kept at the current 25% or even lower at 20%. Any more, and the country may lose the drive to be productive. In Singapore, the population conundrum is as much an economic as it is a political issue. The high immigration inflows the country saw during the economic boom years has led Singaporeans to feel the impact of having foreigners in their midst in their daily lives. So observers say the issue of integration becomes even more important, and the country has to do better in integrating foreigners.
I think the debate needs to be broadened out. I think what we'll find is that there is a social dimension beyond the economic. There's a trade-off between the quality of life and the social ties.
The IPS report comes just a week after a similar paper was issued by the National Population and Talent Division.
An SMRT official today testified that rail claws continued to dislodge even after they were secured with cable ties following the massive train disruptions last December. And from as early as April last year, several irregularities were detected within the affected area.
After the December disruption, cable ties were placed over all claws on the north-south and east-west lines to prevent them from dislodging and causing the third rail to sag. SMRT line manager Lok Kwok Hung told the court there have been instances where claws still got dislodged. When asked why, he said the cable ties used were normal industrial ones and not special ones. Evidence also seemed to indicate that the area where the third rail had sagged in the 17 December disruption to be problematic. Prior to the incident, checks of the third rail by the Multifunction Vehicle or MFV showed instances where measurements went past the safety tolerance levels. Engineering Trains Branch Senior Manager Wong Ten-sin said his team would flag such problems to the relevant maintenance personnel for rectification. Mr. Wong was also quizzed over the cracked mirror and loss of MFV images during inspections hours before the disruption.
Mr. Wong told the court that there shouldn't be a link between the cracked mirror of the multifunction vehicle and the loss of images, but he said it's possible that the sagging of the third rail could have caused the mirror to crack. He said since then he's been told that several pieces of the cracked mirror have been found at the incident site.
The Singapore Police Force is installing more CCTV cameras around the island and will reorganize more neighbourhood police centres under the new community policing model. The plans were unveiled at the Police Work Plan Seminar and Exhibition. Keeping Singapore safe and sound and free from terror threats is one key priority of the Singapore Police Force. But also important, improving policing within a community. 700 more CCTV cameras will be installed at HDB blocks and multi-storey car parks by year's end. 6 more neighbourhood police centres will also be reorganised under the new community policing model. And Singaporeans will soon see traffic police officers in this new uniform.
The main improvement will be the riding jacket, as well. We will feel that we are more protected with the elbow, shoulders and the spine paddings on our body, so that we will feel more confident as well. And this riding jacket is also very comfortable.
Over the past year.
In his speech, Mr. Teo said sustaining the community's trust in the police is key. He added even with the best officers and training, mistakes may occur from time to time, but some mistakes are intolerable.
If the mistake arises from a deliberate misuse of powers, unethical or self-serving behavior, we will investigate and discipline such officers appropriately to ensure that the Singapore Police Force is upright and honourable, and to send a message that the force does not tolerate wrongful behaviour in our officers.
And while Singapore remains one of the safest cities in the world, Mr. Teo says the police must look ahead to meet the demands of the future. More pedestrian crossings will have the Green Man Plus feature by next April. The scheme currently gives the elderly more time to cross the road, but it will be extended to some 7,000 pedestrians with disabilities by the end of this month. Users will hear an alert or feel a vibration when they tap their new Green Man Plus card on a special reader. This will notify them that the Green Man sign will flash longer in the next cycle, for an average of 5 seconds more. The Land Transport Authority has started installing card readers at over 230 pedestrian crossings in 13 housing estates. The employer of a maid who fell to her death while cleaning windows has escaped jail, but Gan Hui Leong has been slapped with a maximum fine of $5,000. She pleaded guilty to failing to ensure that her domestic helper, Siti Ustima, performed her duties in a safe manner. She had previously seen her Indonesian helper clean windows while standing on a stool with the grills and windows open. The 25-year-old fell to her death from a 5th-floor Clementi flat last year. Gan is barred from hiring foreign maids in future. She could have been jailed up to 6 months. More national servicemen are volunteering to enroll in the Singapore Armed Forces Enhanced Physical Training Program. The SAF has seen nearly a 2-fold increase in participation since the IPT scheme was revamped a year ago. It has even improved the passing rate for the annual fitness test by 200%.
Adrian Young had problems passing the standing broad jump station. Determined to pass, the 30-year-old teacher enrolled himself in the IPT scheme. After 10 training sessions, Adrian has finally made the leap from a fail to a pass.
Training on my own, there will be certain expertise and knowledge that we do not have, but the physical instructors, they have. And so when we come for the sessions, they actually train us and they actually equip us with such knowledge. And we have people that will push us to go beyond our physical limits.
The IPT scheme was enhanced in April last year to help citizen soldiers better prepare for their IPPT annual test. It has 10 training sessions spread over 9 months or less. Previously, the sessions were packed into 5 weeks.
This program, it is focused. That means it actually focuses on the weak area of the NS man. For example, if the NS man is weak in the chin-up, all right, our exercise regime will focus very much on the chin-up. The other thing is that it is flexible. The enhanced IPT programs allow the NS man to book the schedule according to what he wants.
We also do make the training fun and definitely not boring, so they won't be just going through motion.
With the enhanced IPT scheme, the Defence Ministry hopes that more can pass the annual fitness test. Going forward, the scheme will be revised and changes made when necessary.
Coming up on News 5, a tan-obsessed mom is arrested for suspected sunbed burns on her 5-year-old. And hello, Kitty. More on this cool cat's high-flying adventure after the break. You have News 5 tonight. In world news, the U.S. has acknowledged that Chinese activist Chen Guangcheng and his family do want to leave the country. Washington says it's in talks with Chen on his options. U.S. officials earlier denied that Chen had asked for asylum, as well as claims that he was pressured to leave their embassy.
It's a situation that is rapidly developing into a major diplomatic headache. Chinese activist Chen Guangcheng took refuge in the U.S. Embassy in Beijing for 6 days after a dramatic escape from house arrest. He left the embassy on Wednesday and was transferred to a hospital following a diplomatic deal that would have allowed him and his family to stay in China under improved circumstances. But Chen is now singing a different tune.
为什么呀？
我感到非常不安全，公民权利跟电话全都打开。
Chen says he changed his mind after his wife told him of recent threats against his family in Shandong province. He also accuses U.S. embassy officials of pushing him to leave the safety of the embassy. The ambassador denies the charge. Top U.S. officials found themselves in the eye of a diplomatic storm when they turned up for the opening of annual bilateral talks in Beijing. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton did not address Chen by name, but brought up the issue of human rights.
As part of our dialogue, the United States raises the importance of human rights and fundamental freedoms because we believe that all governments do have to answer to citizens' aspirations for dignity and the rule of law, and that no nation can or should deny those rights.
However, the Chinese president called for the two countries to respect each other's concerns. He warned that any worsening of relations would pose grave risks for the world.
双方必须学会相互尊重，善于抓住痛，把共同利益的蛋糕做大，正确对待异议。
Chinese authorities have taken a tough tone on this issue. They've criticized what they say is U.S. meddling and have demanded an apology for the way U.S. diplomats handled the case.
In Malaysia, a 12-year-old Dutch boy who was kidnapped almost a week ago has been returned safely to his family. Police confirmed that Nayati Shemlin Mudlia was released earlier this morning in Rawang, Selangor after his family paid an undisclosed amount of ransom money to the kidnappers.
Please return our son. Yes, he's our only son. He's a good boy.
Nearly a week ago, Shah Mudlia and his wife were pleading for kidnappers to return their son. 12-year-old Nayati Shamlin was walking home from school last Friday when he was kidnapped by two men. His father started a Facebook campaign to track the boy down. It drew over 20,000 people, and in a matter of days, pictures of the boy appeared all over Kuala Lumpur.
When we heard that, we were shocked, we were terrified. So we couldn't sleep the first night, and then afterwards we were all well connected. We passed out flyers. We heard that parents are helping around, contacting each other.
Now that Nayati has been found, authorities are focusing on tracking the suspects down.
This case we investigate under Section 3 Kidnapping Act, yang mana jika sabit kesalahan dia boleh dihukum mati.
Police say Nayati is now with his family and in good health. According to reports, Nayati's first priorities were to go back to school and catch up with his friends. Nayati's father says the boy even chose to walk home.
A New Jersey mother with a passion for tanning is feeling the heat from authorities over possible child endangerment.
And to bring my little daughter into a 90-degree bed. I mean, that's not normal.
Patricia Kretzel denies bringing her 5-year-old child into a tanning booth. Still, her daughter turned up at school with a sunburn, prompting a school nurse to contact police. Ms. Kretzel was eventually hauled into court, where she claimed her little girl got burnt while playing outside, even though she had sunblock on. The owner of the tanning salon also says he never saw the girl being led into the tanning booth. One of the world's most recognizable paintings has set a new record as the most expensive art piece ever sold at an auction.
And I start the bidding here at $40 million. 41, 42, 43 already, at 43 million.
The Scream by Edvard Munch was expected to sell for $80 million after a heated bidding war. An anonymous buyer drowned out the competition with a cool $107 million bid. That's $120 million, including the buyer's premium, easily silencing a previous $106 million record for a Picasso.
So,
sports news still to come on 5. A celebration 4 years in the waiting. Real Madrid finally end their La Liga title drought. In business news, Singapore's manufacturing economy has fallen back into contraction after 2 months of expansion. The Purchasing Managers Index, or PMI, for April came in at 49.7. A reading below 50 signals that the manufacturing economy is generally declining. The fall was due to further contraction in inventory and employment, as well as slower growth in production output. OCBC Bank has been named the world's strongest bank for the second year running, according to an annual ranking by Bloomberg Markets magazine. OCBC topped survey covering 78 global banks with at least $100 billion in total assets. They were assessed based on factors such as their Tier 1 capital ratio, loan-to-deposit ratio, and their efficiency ratio. And here are the market numbers. Football. Spanish giants Real Madrid are celebrating their first Primera Liga title in 4 years. They beat a 10-man Athletic Bilbao 3-0 to wrap up their 32nd league crown with 2 games to spare. Real also ended arch-rivals Barcelona's run of 3 successive league titles. Real had needed a victory after Barca beat Malaga 4-1 earlier. Gonzalo Higuain, Mesut Ozil and Cristiano Ronaldo made sure of the 3 points to put Real 7 points clear of second-placed Barca. Real boss Jose Mourinho is now the first coach to win a domestic title in 4 major European leagues. And Mourinho says winning the Primera Liga was the toughest of his 7 league crowns. Jubilant Real fans flooded the streets of Madrid. The title would go some way to ease the pain of Real's defeat on penalties to Bayern Munich in the Champions League semi-finals last week.
Ya era hora, me siento orgulloso del Madrid, de este equipo. Somos los mejores y por fin nos falló la Champions, pero estamos ahí campeones por fin otra vez.
There was some consolation for Barcelona as superstar Lionel Messi reached another milestone in his incredible career. His hat-trick against Malaga broke the record for goals scored in a season for a top European club. Messi's tally of 68 in all competitions beat Gerd Müller, total for Bayern Munich in the 1972-73 season. And in the English Premier League, Chelsea caretaker manager Roberto Di Matteo admits that the Blues' hopes of finishing the top four are in tatters after they went down to Newcastle United. Pepis Demba Cisse scored two superb goals against a tired Chelsea as their grueling schedule finally caught up with them. The win boosts Newcastle's own challenge for a Champions League place next season. Tottenham Hotspur have also kept their European hopes alive after crushing relegation-threatened Bolton Wanderers. Tottenham are in fourth place ahead of Newcastle on goal difference. There was a very special spectator at the Reebok Stadium. Bolton midfielder Fabrice Muamba watched the match 46 days after making a remarkable recovery following a cardiac arrest during a game in March. He had collapsed in an FA Cup quarter-final against Spurs. An emotional Muamba thanked fans for their support and said he is getting stronger every day. The Istaf Super Series Singapore tournament has kicked off here, promising 4 days of exciting sepak takraw action. Powerhouse Thailand in blue took on Malaysia at the official opening at ITE College East Simei. The Thais clearly outplayed their neighbours with their acrobatics and deft touches. The event, featuring 16 teams, is being beamed to an estimated 800 million global television viewers. And finally, one airline has taken Hello Kitty mania to new heights. The cute cartoon cat now has various posh planes thanks to a tie-up between EVA Air and Sanrio. The kitty experience begins when passengers check into Taiwan's Taoyuan International Airport. From girly pink boarding passes to pussycat paraphernalia ranging from headrest covers and pillows, and the Sanrio superstar in various edible forms. Clearly, this over-the-top experience is a sweet treat for fans.
我觉得它让我们感觉很开心的感觉，然后我觉得用Hello Kitty，其实我觉得可以让我想到很多童年，因为全部都是 Hello Kitty 啊，很吸引人哦。And then 我也有孩子了啊。 如果可以带他们来这边，大概很开心哦。
The first Hello Kitty-inspired plane by EVA Air rolled down the runway in 2005, but the service has recently been expanded to more Asian cities, including Shanghai and Sapporo. A perfect opportunity for more to jet set with the cool cat, we say. On that note, it's time for me to take off. This has been News 5 Tonight. Good night.